Greetings, salutations, respect, and love. I am Scott, and you are in the Prog Corner, and today we are going to be taking a look at Queen. Yeah, are they prog? I have no idea, but I really do like them, and they're prog adjacent. They're close enough, so we're going to rank their albums from worst to best. Yeah. Let's talk a little history about this band. It started out with Brian May and Roger Taylor. They were in a band called Smile with a dude named Tim Staffel. Tim Staffel had a friend by the name of Farouk Bulsara who wanted to be in the band real bad, but Tim didn't want to quit, so he just kind of worked on other things while biding his time. After Smile wrote and recorded exactly 6 songs, Tim quit the band, citing artistic differences with Roger and Brian, thus opening the door for Farouk Freddie Bulsara to join the band. They had like a little revolving door of bass players. You had a guy named Mike Gross play on 3 gigs. Barry Mitchell played 13 gigs for the band. Doug Bogey played 2 gigs for the band. And then they did the right thing and they settled on John Deacon, which was the perfect guy for the band. He joined February 1971, played his first gig July 2nd, 1971. They recorded their first album after getting a management deal with Trident. It didn't include a record contract, so they actually recorded and completed their first album without having a record deal. The first label that bit was Charisma, but the guys in the band were like, they're going to be too busy with Genesis, so they passed on that, which was a good call because EMI snapped them up. They had a lot of help along the way from 2 producers, John Anthony and Roy Thomas Baker, both of whom are cited as producers on that first album. Lady Di was a huge fan of Queen. I wonder why. And Kansas became real good friends with them when they toured the UK. So that just makes me like them even more. We're going to rank 14 albums here today. We're not going to be ranking the Flash Gordon soundtrack. I got nothing against soundtracks, but there's only like 2 songs on there. The rest of it's all like, soundtrack music. And we're not going to be ranking The Cosmos Rocks, which is Queen featuring Paul Rodgers. A fine record, but it's not Queen. And then you get the Adam Lambert era. Fantastic, but no band from the 70s has had a bigger trajectory and has had more momentum in this 21st century than Queen. Yeah, Led Zeppelin and Pink Floyd have always been popular, but something about Queen in the last couple years just exploded. There's a reason they did the biopic, that Bohemian Rhapsody movie with Malek Rami, whatever his name is. And that movie absolutely exploded and took Queen to the next level. Look at all these publications that are talking about Queen as one of the greatest bands of all time. You got first place here. You got second place there. You got fourth place there. I mean, look at all these publications. I don't think that would have been the case 20 years ago. I don't think Queen would have been considered a top 10 band of all time 15, 20 years ago, but they most certainly are now. So we're going to start with album number 14. And yeah, these first couple albums I always disliked, but I'm telling you, spending the weekend with Queen's discography, they do not have a bad album in their entire catalog. At number 14 is the posthumous Made in Heaven. Yeah, this was made after Freddie Mercury was dead. He sang a bunch of stuff when he was able to and he was feeling well enough. And then the boys in the band, along with David Richards, went back and tried to, make some sense of it. There's some decent songs on here. It's a Beautiful Day, Made in Heaven, Let Me Live, Mother Love. They're decent, but nothing here is great. So much so that the coolest thing I found is that the hidden track 13 is like 22 minutes of ambient. It's pretty cool, actually. They never recorded anything like that, so I appreciated it. At number 13, let's go to 1982 and Hot Space. Man, I always hated this album. I just absolutely despised it. I always thought it was just Under Pressure and a bunch of songs that didn't belong there. Yeah, Under Pressure was recorded in 81, so it has very little to do with the rest of the album. But then going back to it, yeah, it's disco. It's got bad synth sounds, but some of those disco songs aren't bad. Staying Power, Dancer, I enjoy. Body Language isn't bad, but there's some rockers in here, like Put Out the Fire is a good song. Action This Day is really weird. Las Palabras de Amor is cool. And I just heard Cool Cat on a TV commercial the other day, so that's awesome. At number 12. From 1986, it's A Kind of Magic. This is another weird one for the band in that it kind of serves as a pseudo soundtrack to the Highlander movie. Just bizarre. I guess about half of these songs ended up in the movie. There were a couple songs that they recorded for the movie that didn't make it. And then there were a couple older songs from older Queen albums that were in the movie. Just really weird. This album is marred by some bad production. It's produced by Mac. Most of it, I guess the other dude did some of it. What's his name? David Richards and Mac both worked on this one. But One Vision's a good song. The title track's good. Give Me the Prize is good. Don't Lose Your Head. Princes of the Universe. Those are good songs. The rest of them, maybe not quite so much. But yeah, this album peaked at 46 in the US. Yeah. Let's talk about number 11 because it's a much better album. 1991 Innuendo, kind of the real swan song, the final album while Freddie was still alive. Even though they did not tour this album, he was present during all the recording sessions from start to finish. So this is kind of like the final Queen album, really. Produced by Dave Richards. This is the first album that was on Hollywood Records, which was an imprint owned by Disney. They thought that might help them in the U.S. market. It peaked at number 30 in the U.S., so not great. Of course, proggers all know that Steve Howe's on the title track, but there's some other good songs on here. Headlong, I Can Live With You, Ride the Wild Wind, The Hitman. Those are good songs. It's all right, but it's kind of a weird sounding record. Freddie Mercury died 9 months after this thing was released, but I do like it. It's a decent record. At number 10, let's go to 1989. Its predecessor, which I liked even better, called The Miracle. Again, this one produced by Dave Richards. This one peaked at number 24 in the U.S., and I like this album a lot. Freddie sounds really, really good. His voice, this is the last album that his voice was absolutely, Freddie Mercury-esque. Opens with Party, which is an interesting song. He's talking about the party being over. How prescient was he? Khashoggi's Ship is cool. The Miracle's cool. The big hit was I Want It All on here. Nice song. This album was originally going to be called The Invisible Men, but I guess Roger Taylor talked him into calling it The Miracle. Freddie knew he had AIDS at this point, but the world did not. I guess he was diagnosed in 87, so he knew he was living on borrowed time, and they came up with a fantastic album in 1989. At number 9, these records are getting real good now. From 1984, an album called The Works. This one was produced by Mac, and it peaked at number 23 in the U.S., and I think this album is marred primarily because Americans just did not understand the song Radio Gaga. I don't understand the song Radio Gaga, but man, when they played it at Live Aid, I definitely had a new appreciation of it. I Want to Break Free is probably the big hit on here, but there's some other good songs. There's some real rockers on here like Tear It Up and Hammer to Fall. Very cool. There's a little Elvis sounding song, Man on the Prowl, I Don't Care For. I Go Crazy is a good song though, but The Works, kind of a mixed bag, but there's some great stuff on here. At number 8, it's getting real good. Here's 1980s The Game, the first Queen album to use synthesizers, and their first and only album to hit number 1. And why wouldn't it hit number 1? You have Mac producing again here. His pedigree's great. I mean, he's done a lot of stuff with people like Billy Squier, but he's also worked with Polish jazz fusion band SBB. He's worked with It Bites. He's worked with Sparks. So this guy was an absolute monster in the studio. And this album has some monster hits. Crazy Little Thing Called Love. Another one, Bites the Dust. But some real cool songs. Save Me. Play the Game's great. Dragon Attack is cool, but there's some songs I don't love. Rocket, Don't Try Suicide. Why is that song so happy? I don't know. Sail Away, Sweet Sister, I could do with that. At number 7, Probably my most disappointing Queen experience was after Night at the Opera came out. The follow-up, A Day at the Races from 1976. It really didn't do it for me, but there were a couple songs that I absolutely adore, and that's why it's at number 7 on this list. Tie Your Mother Down, of course. The big hit was Somebody to Love. Good old-fashioned Lover Boys on here. That's cool. You Take My Breath Away, The Millionaire Waltz. White Man's a weird song. Overall, just kind of a disappointment from the boys after they'd been working with Roy Thomas Baker from the get-go. This one they self-produced, and they probably should have kept Roy Thomas Baker around for one more record. At number 6. Probably the album that I had the biggest change of heart about. It's Jazz from 1978. I never really liked this album because I wasn't a big fan of like Fat Bottom Girls and Bicycle Race, but there's some really good deep tracks on here. Mustafa's fantastic. Don't Stop Me Now, of course. Everybody knows that. Jealousy is really good. Dreamer's Ball is cool. Even the disco song, Fun It, is actually pretty good. And Only 7 Days is a good song. Jazz is actually a fantastic record. It saw the return of Roy Thomas Baker to the fold. And this thing hit number 6 in the U.S., recorded in Montreux. This is the first album they recorded in Switzerland. Right after Yes did Going for the One and ELP did Works Volume 1 there. I guess at later date, a couple years later, Queen would actually buy the studio. And you see the cover of Made in Heaven. That's the statue of Freddie at Lake Geneva in front of the recording studio that they bought. I guess their producer ended up buying it later on after Queen broke up. But Jazz is phenomenal, man. I was dead wrong about Jazz. I used to hate it. It's really, really good. But my top 5, man, I love these 5 records. At number 5, it's News of the World. I know some people don't love this record. I do. It's got a real cool sound to it. Kind of a back to basics approach. They have Mike Stone here, so it's a step up from Day at the Races in terms of sonic quality. We Are the Champions, duh. We Will Rock You. It's Late is my favorite song on here. Sheer Heart Attack's on here. Spread Your Wings, Get Down, Make Love. This album peaked at number 3, and rightly so. It's one of my favorite Queen albums. It's fantastic. At number 4, we're talking about that debut album that they recorded without even having a recording contract. This thing came out in 73, and it peaked at number 83 in the U.S., so every single Queen album charted in the U.S. Yeah, Keep Yourself Alive opens this thing up. What a great, rousing way to start a career. But Doing All Right was one of the 6 Smile songs they wrote, actually made it onto this album. Great King Rat, My Fairy King, Modern Times Rock and Roll, and the short version of 7 Seas of Rye, which they would expand for Queen 2, which we're going to talk about right now at number 3 from 1974. It's Queen 2, probably their proggiest album. A lot of people's favorite album from Queen, and why not? It's got Ogre Battle and March of the Black Queen. You got the white side, you got the black side. I mean, how proggy is all of that stuff? Produced by the great Roy Thomas Baker. John Anthony was no longer involved in the recording here. I guess at this point, they let them use the good equipment. They let them go, I guess on the first album at Trident, they were having to record at off hours. By the time Queen 2 came around, they were able to record during the day, use the good equipment. They were no longer scrubs. This album did a little bit better than the first album, peaking at number 49, but it is their heaviest album. I think it's their proggiest album, and I just love Queen 2. It's fantastic. At number 2, let's go with 1974 Sheer Heart Attack, shall we? Yeah, this was my introduction to Queen. I was like 12 years old and I hear Killer Queen and I was sold, man. I'm like, who is this band? I need to find out who they are. So I bought Sheer Heart Attack and I certainly was not disappointed. The song Killer Queen hit number 2 in the UK, number 12 in the US, so it was their first big hit. The album itself, Sheer Heart Attack, hit number 12 in the US also. Brighton Rock, Tenement Funster, In the Lap of the Gods, Flick of the Wrist. Every song on Sheer Heart Attack is just phenomenal. It's also Robert Pollard from Guided by Voices' favorite Queen album. I think it's probably a lot of people's favorite Queen album, but I've got one that I like even better. You know what it is. Man, how How lame am I that I'm going to put it at number one? Night at the Opera from 1975. At the time it was recorded, it was the most expensive album ever recorded. This thing hit number 4. On the Billboard charts. They did not record this at Trident. The first 3 they recorded at Trident, but apparently Roy Thomas Baker was no longer working at Trident. So they went to another studio and they actually recorded this thing on 24 track. Their first 3 were done on 16 track. Like I said, the most expensive album ever made at the time. Bohemian Rhapsody alone took 3 months to record that thing. Death on Two Legs is on this album. You're My Best Friend. 39. I'm in Love with My Car. The Prophet song. And of course, the great Bohemian Rhapsody. One of the greatest songs ever written. Man, I'm telling you, if Queen had written a whole bunch more songs like Bohemian Rhapsody, they would probably be one of my favorite bands of all time. But I really do enjoy their discography. I like every single album. They all have something to offer. And are they prog? I don't know, man, but I really do dig them. They're fantastic. Anyway, sorry I didn't do a video yesterday. I was busy doing other stuff, but you know how that goes. So, I will see you freaks next week where we're going to continue our travelogue. Who knows where we're going? Are we going to Norway? Are we going to Brazil? I don't know, but it's going to be awesome. So anyway, you freaks have a great weekend. I will see you soon, and God save the king. Hey, wait a second. Which king are we talking about? Are we talking about King Charles III of the UK, or King Felipe VI of Spain, or King Felipe of Belgium, or King Willem Alexander of Holland, or Carl XVI Gustav of Sweden, or King Harold V of Norway, or King Abdullah II from Jordan, or how about King Mohammed VI of Morocco? Oh, wait a second. We were talking about Queen, and there's only one Queen regent in the entire world. So God save the Queen, Queen Marguerite II of Denmark. Yeah. All right, with the death of Queen Elizabeth II, she's the only reigning queen, real queen, not a queen consort, but a queen regent that actually, doesn't share with the king or whatever. So there you have it, boys and girls. That's my wrap up of Queen. It's going to be a great weekend, and I love y'all. See ya. Peace.